Hi there, Sutonia here. Just thought I'd take a quick look at the new Tiericide changes that are on the Singularity right now, and will probably be in the. These changes are will probably be rolled into the next patch, which is next Tuesday, which is a week from now. So first of all, we're going to look at the shield extenders. The changes here are for shield and plates. So looking at the shield extenders, you can see that first of all, micro is completely gone. Micro was a pretty worthless tier for shield extenders since they only gave double-digit shield HP. And all micro shield extenders that exist in the game will change to this small trapper shield extender, which is a meta. It's a storyline version of a small shield extender, which is very similar to the old micro, or the old. It's been upgraded to a small version, I believe. So now it gives you 300 HP. It doesn't have any additional stats here, but I assume it's getting buffed if it was a micro before. Maybe it was a small before. I'm not too sure. Anyway, there's going to be two meta versions of shield extenders. There's going to be a F-S9 Regolith Compact, which will give better fittings, and we also have Azeotropic Restrained Shield Extenders, which will give less signature radius. And both meta and shield extenders will be better than Tech 1 in every aspect. So there's no reason to fit Tech 1 over the Regolith or Azeotropic. And there are 3 faction shield extenders: Fucker, Caldari Navy, and Republic Fleet. And what CCP are doing with them now is that Fucker will be the hardest to fit out of the 3 faction shield extenders. All 3 give the same hit points, and the amount that they're giving is more than Tech 2. It's about 10% more throughout the tiers, through small, medium, and large. So Fucker Tribe, they give the least signature radius out of Caldari Navy and Republic Fleet. The signature radius that they give is very similar to Azeotropic, which is the meta version devoted to signature radius, but also giving more shield HP. The drawback of Fucker versus the other 2 is that Fucker are harder to fit. They use the same CPU as meta, and they also use more power grid than both Caldari Navy and Republic Fleet. So Fucker Tribe, obviously the strongest shield module if you can fit it. I believe Fucker Tribe modules are a bit rarer as well, because you cannot obtain them from factional warfare like you can with the Caldari Navy and the Republic Fleet small shield extenders. Republic Fleet is next. Republic Fleet is sort of like a hybrid between Compact and Azeotropic. So they give less signature radius than Tech 2 and the other factions and meta, and they also have less grid requirements as well. Not quite as strong as the dedicated fitting module. So you would probably fit Republic Fleet over Fucker Tribe, assuming I think Fucker Tribe will be a lot more expensive, but I think Republic Fleet will probably be the second most popular shield extender, because it gives the same hit points as Caldari Navy, and I think power grid is normally a better stat on frigates anyway. Power grid reduction tends to be more effective, I think, and it gives less signature radius than the Caldari Navy shield extender. And the Caldari Navy shield extender is pretty simple. It just uses the least CPU out of the other 2 factions. It uses less CPU than the non-dedicated meta, but it does use more CPU than the compact meta version of shield extenders. And to talk briefly about the storyline version, so Small Trapper, this is like what all the micro shield extenders are going to be converted to, which is just like a weak one that has the least fittings, and then Small Wolf shield extender, which is losing some fittings. It's actually going to get easier to fit, and it's also getting buffed as well. All storyline shield extender modules, they're easier to fit than Compact, and their power level is between meta version and the Tech 2 version. So to briefly talk about small shield extenders, to start off with, small shield extenders have been buffed. They have, in most cases, their HP bonus has been doubled or more than doubled. So this has quite some interesting applications to the game. I think we'll probably see some ships that previously would fit medium auxiliary shield boosters, or ships like Kiters that need some secondary tank, but it's not their primary source of taking damage. So, for example, I think small shield extenders would be viable on something like a Condor or a Crow, debatably Gamma, maybe like a Kiting Hook build. Those sort of ships, I think we will see small shield extenders on. I don't think they're good enough to be on as a primary damage thing. I think that's what the medium shield extenders will be for frigates. But overall, very interesting now that we have the small. So, medium shield extenders, and there's a few ramifications here. The first one that's really worth talking about is the Regolith compact shield extender is actually going to be easier to fit now. It's losing 2 power grid requirement and 1 CPU requirement. So this will actually have a big impact on some frigate fits. And I actually have a hook build fit that I'm really excited for that will actually fit now after this change. The second one that's also quite interesting to talk about is the Azeotropic. I think we'll actually see this on interceptors and other ships that mitigate damage primarily through signature radius tanking. There's also a new micro warp drive module that has a lower signature radius, and that might also be combined with this to have interceptors will be quite a bit harder to hit after the patch, especially with the speed changes as well that's coming to micro warp drives. Other than that, the Tech 2 medium shield extender is actually getting a little easier to fit. It's getting buffed as well. That's also another thing that's worth talking about with the medium shield extenders is the medium shield extender 2 is getting buffed. It's getting an extra 50 hit points. It's a bit harder to fit on CPU. It costs 1 more CPU, but it's losing 1 grid requirement, and normally the 1 power grid requirement was the limiting factor rather than the CPU requirement on them. So it's a reasonable buff, I guess. And the storyline module here is pretty standard. It's in line with everything else. It's a bit more powerful than the meta versions, not as powerful as Teak 2, and it has the best fitting. So definitely going to see that used in some cases. Probably has the same application as it does now. And then you've got the FUCA, the Caldari Navy, and the Republic Fleet shield extenders. I think the Republic Fleet medium extender will probably be the most popular at this tier, just because the power grid usage is the same as the compact, while it also gives the extra hit point bonus. But and also because it's Mimitar and it comes from factional warfare, and right now as I'm recording this video, Mimitar is in tier 4, so Republic Fleet medium shield extenders are sitting around 4 to 5 million ISK each right now. So I expect this to be very popular on some Tech 2 frigates and most faction frigates. And finally we have the large shield extenders. Now large shield extenders, again, they're getting easier to fit on the compact version, the Regolith version. It's losing 10 CPU requirement to fit. It is going up by 1 CPU though, and it is giving a bit less shield HP than it does now, and it's also giving more signature radius too. And the large Azeotropic, I'm not sure how much use this will see. Maybe we'll see it on some heavy assault cruisers. I'm not too sure. I don't think there's that many cruiser-sized ships that mitigate damage solely based on their speed. At least against most of the common damage sources in this game, with rapid light missiles and drones. I don't think the Azeotropic shield extender will be as popular, but who knows, it could be useful. And another interesting change is the large shield extender 2. It's losing a bit of HP, but not much. But it is getting a lot easier to fit with 5 less power grid and 1 less CPU. So there's quite a few fits that might come into play from these changes. I definitely think that there might be like some more heavy assault missile launcher sort of cruiser fits that work now. And there's not too much interesting things to say about the rest of the modules. I guess they follow the same sort of tier as the previous set. Republic Fleet Large isn't as good as the Compact, but it's the same as the Compact on the medium and small tiers, so it's not quite as good on the large tier, but still, I think the Republic Fleet Large Shield Extender will probably be the most popular large shield extender, based on the fact that I think it's going to be the cheapest one, and it's also going to be generally more useful because it has less signature radius than the Caldari Navy one, which will probably be at a similar price. The extra 5 CPU could be interesting though. 5 CPU is definitely more valuable than 5 power grid on cruisers, so the Caldari Navy one might be a bit more valuable at the large tier. And we'll move on to armor plates. The armor plate changes are a bit more disappointing, I think. So the 50mm ones, very similar to the micro shield extenders, they're going to be removed from the game, and all the 50mm plates will get converted to this Citadella 100mm steel plates. So you'll get a Cosmos module, which is it only gives 175 shield HP though, and let's just talk about 100mm plates quickly. They're absolute trash. No one's ever going to fit them. They're a waste of a slot. They don't give enough benefits, especially when you compare them to small ancillary armor repairers. Small ancillary armor repairers will actually out-rep even a Tech 2 or the faction plates in 2 to 3 cycles with heat. So no one's going to fit them, especially as a small ancillary repper, for example, is actually easier to fit than all the faction millimeter plates. But anyway, let's get on to the differences. So just like shield extenders, there's 2 types of plates now. There'll be tungsten compact, rolled tungsten compact, and crystalline carbonide restrained. So the restrained version has less mass addition, and the rolled tungsten compact plates have less power grid and CPU. There's 3 different types of plates. It's a bit more complicated this time around than the 3 faction shield extenders. So the first one we have here is the Syndicate plates. In comparison to everything else, they use less CPU. They use close to the same CPU as Compact. Sorry, I'm talking about power grid here. Sorry, close to the same power grid as Compact. So very similar to the Republic Fleet Shield Extender. The Syndicate sort of fills the same role. It has the highest CPU requirement though, out of all the faction plates, although it's the same as meta version, I believe. Maybe it's a bit higher on the higher plates. And Syndicate does have significantly less mass as well. As you can see, 25,000 here on the 100mm plate, which is less than even the dedicated mass reduction meta module. Syndicate and Federation Navy, they do give more armor HP than Tech 2, and then Imperial Navy gives a bit more than that on top of that. So onto the Federation Navy plates. Federation Navy are sort of in between on fittings. It requires more grid than Syndicate, but it requires a bit less CPU. And the Federation Navy plate is sort of like the mass specialized plate. It adds the least mass, so it's more of like if you want to fit a plate on a cruiser or on any ship, and you want to retain as much speed as possible, Federation Navy is probably the best bet there. And then finally you have Imperial Navy, which are actually harder to fit than Tech 2, which is quite interesting. On the power grid side of things anyway, but they do require the least CPU of the plates, and they also give the most armor hit points. They have the most mass, they add the most mass, so that's the worst aspect of them, of the other faction plates, but it's actually the same, I believe, as the dedicated mass reduction meta plate. So on this 100mm you'll see here, they adds 32.5 100,000 on here, and it's the same here. So Imperial Navy, the most powerful, but adds the most mass out of the faction plates, and it's hardest to fit power grid wise, but with the least CPU fitting. So It's quite difficult there. Disappointingly, at least not on the 100mm plates, but you'll see here is that a lot of the storyline plates are actually getting harder to fit, and a lot of people have complained about this on the forums. Here, the Bailey plate is getting a lot harder to fit. The Barbican nameplate is getting harder to fit. The 400mm plate is getting harder to fit. So it's a bit disappointing on the storyline modules, and it's also a bit disappointing that 100mm plates will be trash. You will not fit them at all. I don't think you'll see them at all, just because they're harder to fit than the small auxiliary armor repper, and small auxiliary armor repper out reps them in 2 to 3 cycles. So there's no point of ever fitting them. There's much better low slots that you can fit, especially there's even like 0 CPU armor low slots like adaptive nanoplating. So I don't think we'll see 100mm plates at all. Onto the 200mm plates. 200mm plates share a similar role to the small shield extender, I believe. I don't think it'll be a primary tank, but I think it can be a secondary tank, and it can be like a nice addition to a small ancillary armor repper. Like on my claw fit before these changes, I had small ancillary armor repper and 200mm plate. But there is some interesting things happening here, I guess, is that the rolled tungsten plate is getting a bit easier to fit. 1 less power grid and 2 less CPU is kind of interesting. I guess it's not as interesting as the medium and large shield extenders getting easier to fit though. One drawback as well is that it's going to add more mass, and it's also going to add less HP as well. So 200mm plates not really getting too much of a buff here. The Federation Navy plate as well, or the Imperial Navy, if you can fit it with the 700 HP bonus, could be potentially interesting, because it adds like almost 3 times less mass than the 400mm plate. You could see some faction 200mm plates, but I don't think anything's really going to change with them. I think they're going to be very situational, as they are now on some frigate fits. More of a supplement to a tank rather than actually a actual tank. So onto the 400mm plates. One interesting thing again with the compact plate is it's getting easier to fit. 2 less grid, 2 less CPU, and it's getting buffed as well, up to 1100. It is also getting a mass increase from what it is right now on TQ, but the extra hit points and also the easier fittings are notable, I guess. There's no changes at all to the Tech 2 version of the 400mm steel plates. It's going to be exactly how it is now, and I don't think you really see it too much, honestly, right now. A lot of the time people prefer the 5 grid or the 7 grid now from the meta version, and the lower mass that it used to give, instead of the that 100 extra hit points isn't worth that. I don't think the Tech 2 steel plates is going to be used any more than it is now, which is quite a shame. As for the faction versions, the one that's probably the most interesting to me is Syndicate plates, just because it's getting a lot easier to fit in a lot of cases, and 1300 hit points is actually quite a decent deal, and it's actually a lot. It adds quite a lot lower mass. It adds like 1/3 less mass than the Tech 2 version. So I can definitely see the Syndicate plate being popular on the 400mm tier. Federation Navy is just getting a bit easier to fit on CPU, and it's getting more armor hit points, of course. Maybe we'll see it a bit on some pimped, maybe like a malediction. Maybe we'll see that. Imperial Navy is quite interesting. So Imperial Navy is going to be a lot harder to fit here. Extra 5 power grid on top of the Tech 2 version, that really hurts. And then 18, I mean, it's getting a bit easier to fit on CPU, but CPU on frigates is a lot easier to come by, and this module is nowhere near justifiable to fit on a cruiser. So the Imperial Navy plates, I don't think we'll see them. It's almost like trying to make that the most effective hit point fit on a frigate possible. I don't think you'll see the Imperial Navy steel plates really at all. The extra 5 grid requirement is really steep. There's often better adjustments you can make to a ship. On 800mm plates, again, interesting, the tungsten compact plate, CPU and power grid requirements are being reduced, so it could make a few fits happen. One of the disappointing things, of course, is the storyline plate is getting harder to fit in all cases, although it is losing some mass and some HP, so maybe that's justifiable. Syndicate plate is quite interesting here again. It adds, so I think all the plates, Tech 2 is pretty much unchanged except for 1600, which we'll get onto in a while. So 800 plates. The Syndicate plate is quite interesting, I think, because it's losing quite a lot of grid requirement, and it's getting quite a nice buff to armor hit points. Also, one of the interesting things again about the 800mm plates is they actually had quite a lot less mass than 1600. So, and the HP bonus is actually very similar to large shield extenders. So I think 800mm plates, I think they're already usable in some situations on Tranquility. You can use like a medium auxiliary armor repairer than an 800mm plate, and that uses less fittings, less grid than 1600, and you basically get a 1600 plate if you get off like most of the medium auxiliary charges. Of course, with the 800mm plate having less mass, that's one big advantage it actually has. Otherwise, not too much really happening here. Federation Navy has the same grid requirements as Tech 2, but it does add less. It does add less mass. Actually, getting nerfed on mass in this patch, which is kind of interesting. Imperial Navy 800mm plates getting harder to fit than Tech 2, but I think it actually might work at this tier, because sometimes you don't have enough grid to fit 1600, but you can fit 1800, and the extra 15 grid is not really a big deal. And just getting that extra 125 armor hit points over the other faction plates, or the extra 225 over Tech 2, yeah, I can see it. I can see Imperial Navy 800mm steel plates being useful on some fits. So on to 1600, which is by far the most popular tier that most people use, because it adds such an enormous buffer to cruisers, and it's viable on battleships as well. So compact, getting easier to fit. Again, really interesting. 20 power grid gone, 1 CPU gone. Might see a few more fits crop up that are viable with 1600 rolled tungsten plates. The restraint plate isn't really getting changed at all. It's a bit harder to fit with 1 more CPU, but the extra armor is probably worth it. Again, disappointing on the storyline plate, because it's getting harder to fit than it is now. It is losing some mass and getting some HP back again, but I don't know. Seems kind of bad. The Tech 2 1600mm steel plate is the only Tech 2 plate that's actually getting changed in this patch, and is losing some grid. 25 less grid for 3 more CPU is probably a fair change. I don't think it'll impact things too much, but it might make some fits work. Syndicate plates, I think, is probably the most interesting one, because it uses only 495 grid, and the extra CPU requirement is not too much. I mean, it's the same as the Tech 2. But saving 55 grid is a pretty big deal on a cruiser, and then just getting that extra 500 armor HP. Sorry, the extra 200 armor HP over Tech 2, and the pretty significant mass reduction again. It has 1/3 less mass than Tech 2 steel. The Tech 2 1600mm steel plates. I can see it being used. Federation Navy 1600 steel plates. It has the least mass, but I think that Syndicate will probably be more popular. 250, 100,000 mass isn't too much of a big deal, and the the grid requirement is probably a bigger deal. But it does use less CPU than the Syndicate plate, which is one good aspect of it. And then Imperial Navy 1600mm steel plates. I think this will actually be very popular on some battleships, just because they don't care about the extra 25 the 25 grid, of course. So the extra 250 hit points they give over the faction bonuses, and then the extra 450 on top of the Tech 2. Definitely worth it, especially on some like Trimark battleships, slave battleships, that sort of thing. I think we'll see a lot of Imperial Navy 1600mm steel plates on them. So that's a basic rundown of all the Tiericide changes. I hope this video helped. I think overall, I think the shield extender changes are very good. I'm really looking forward to them. The plate changes a bit more disappointing, but it'd be interesting to see how the compact shield extenders and the compact plates will change a lot of fits. Definitely could be a few exciting things coming. And thanks for watching.